I think let's start with the introduction of Mindset Esports.
Well, Esports South Africa, otherwise known as MSSA, was founded in 1985. And back then, in the late 1980s, early 1990s, we actually ran esports events, to Sinclair and Atari.
Wow, okay. Yeah, way before me.
Our first provincial championship in esports, according to, with shall we say, modern esports, was in 1998 when we ran a Warcraft championship, provincial championships in Gauteng. So we've been doing, so Mindsports South Africa has been running provincial and national championships for esports since 1998.
24 years.
We've selected teams that we have awarded Protea colours since 2005, with teams going off to practically every continent. All our Protea teams that we've sent off, none of the teams have had to put a hand in their pocket in order to go across. Now, what's important is the structure of MSSA, and the structure is that clubs affiliate directly to the National Federation so that there's better transparency and better good governance. It also means that people can get onto the board in a relatively short period of time. Basically, there's a sort of a 2-year waiting period, just so that people can actually understand the culture. Yes, the structure, but the culture. And, so that people aren't reinventing the wheel. Even if you wanted to become president, which hopefully somebody does, it basically means that you would have to do your time on the board. So in effect, there's a 5-year period for anybody to become president. So for example, Zane, you yourself, I think, are 24.
Yes.
By the time you're 30, you could be president of MSSA. And that's how easy it is for new people to come in, to actually put their ideas across, and to actually, make real changes. Well, yes, but to make real changes in Mindsports. So you'll find that MSSA is always, the board is a very young board. I'm the oldest person on it, being in my 60s, but you'll find that most of the people on the board are either in their 20s or 30s. Which, when you look at any national federation, that is totally different, because you normally find in a national federation, you'll find that the average age of people serving on the board is 50 to 60. So this means that Mindsports South Africa can remain a lot more dynamic and, of course, remain more relevant to its actual base.
Yeah, I see you've been part of Mindsports for a long time, since 2005.
Well, 2000, no, actually even before then, from 1985 through to 2005, Mindsports South Africa was known as the South African War Games Union. We basically changed the name, to make it more compatible, and also to not sound as aggressive as what it used to. So in 2005, the name was changed to Mindsports South Africa. But I've been actually involved since the very beginning, when I was a student.
Okay. According to people in the Call of Duty community, you guys are all about money, making money.
Well, that's not true. Mindsports South Africa is a non-profit organization. As you can imagine, to get a team across overseas, takes a huge amount of capital. We actually we normally budget at least 100 to 300,000 rand a year to get teams across. Even when you're doing online test matches where we're giving Protea colors, this still requires, of course, funding, because we still have to provide kit. We still have to follow all the procedure as laid down by SASCOC and by the Ministry of Sport. The Protea badge itself is, of course, an official award. So we have to follow that protocol and those and due process. Running national and provincial and even regional championships requires time, effort, and money. So we're not all about the money. And when you look at the actual cost, you're looking at just over 100 Rand for a club to affiliate. If you're looking at the school clubs, affiliated players to those school clubs pay a whole 10 Rand a year. Private clubs, the players pay over just over 100 Rand a year. And of course, there are entry fees to tournaments, but the entry fees are also kept at the bare minimum. School tournaments are charged out at 50 Rand entry, sometimes for free, depending on the school tournament. And then you're also looking at the senior tournaments are 100 Rand entry per player. This is not a lot of money. If you have a look at 100 Rand, we need a lot of 100 Rands to get teams overseas, to give them Protea colors, to give the people the opportunities that they deserve in order to get these awards, so that they can actually make full use of them. So we're not all about the money. Everybody on the board is a volunteer. There are no salaries paid throughout MSSA. Everybody does it for free. So we're not about the money at all. Every cent that we get in goes into either getting teams across or doing development. And that's a very important aspect, because if you look at a lot of the private events that are being run, there is no development being done.
Nothing.
And this is why, if you have a look at gaming in South Africa, it's actually declined over the past couple of years, when in fact in the rest of the world, due to COVID, gaming has actually increased. So this is something that we do look at, and this is why we put our money where our mouth is. This is why, for example, if you are unemployed as an adult, we actually don't even charge you entry fees. If you are a minor and your parents are unemployed, again, the club can ask for these fees to be waived. So we work very much on an honor-based system, where we rely on the club to be honest with us, and in return, we put our money where our mouth is. We actually say, well, you don't have to pay. So, and in South Africa at the moment, you've got to realize that the economy affects everybody. So you have a number of people who are unemployed. I mean, the government says it's 35%, but if you've done math at school, you'll know that it's actually over 70%.
Over 70, yeah.
So what you've got to look at is the money we get we are not asking for huge amounts from people, but we utilize it for development at all levels, from grassroots through to high performance. And then, of course, we use it, of course, for getting the team across. And I mean, sometimes, for example, for our Counter-Strike team, we actually had a couple of years ago as the coach for our Counter-Strike team, the owner of Fates, who used to play for SK Gaming. We brought them out here in 2008. And this is what we do, because we are looking at the longevity of gaming. We're looking
Creating
at
opportunities.
yes, greater opportunities, but we're looking at how to not just have gamers, but to have gamers also move in to become productive members of society after their gaming careers.
I'm just looking for that post promoting the championships. Which games are you guys currently doing for esports?
Right, from a mobile point of view, I mean, obviously the ones that are being played at ISF World Championships take precedence because we want to get teams across, especially this year, to Bali. It's a marvelous opportunity for anybody. It's 11 days and, you know, a 5-star hotel on the beachfront in Bali. So the mobile games there are Mobile Legends, Bang Bang, and PUBG Mobile. But we also do other mobile games. So we do Call of Duty Mobile. We do Hearthstone, which can be played on mobile. And of course, we do Clash Royale, which is a very popular title, especially amongst the schools. No, look, there have been criticisms of MSSA over the years, rightly and wrongly. And yes, people do, from the gaming sector in particular, do look at it and say, well, you know, the way that we operate is outmoded. But it's not an outmoded system if you want a national federation, if you want the advantages of provincial colours, if you want the advantages of Protea colours, and if you want to go and play at ISF events. It's not outdated. In fact, what this does is provide a training ground for people to actually see how all sport is actually governed. And we've had a number of people in esports who've done particularly well from other sports, from wrestling, funny enough, from judo. We've even had a swimmer. And because they understood the system, they could make full use of it. So that's the important aspect. A point that you raised the other day, Zane, was that MSSA required clubs to share their sponsorships.
Yeah, that was another thing amongst the Call of Duty people.
Yes, and that's not true. A club affiliated to MSSA is its own autonomous body. The only time that MSSA can interfere in that running of that club is if it is contrary to the constitution of MSSA or itself is breaking the law. That's the only time that we can. And that's basically because, especially with non-profit bodies, it really falls under the law of contract. So our constitution is the contract that the member club has. So in fact, we can breach the contract, or in fact, the member club can breach the contract. And that's, of course, that allows us then to, if the member club breaches contract, then of course we're able to interfere. So if a club is running a regional event or its own event or even a derby event, because we allow clubs to actually profit out of regional and derby events without MSSA taking any share of the profit. And that's stated in both our constitution and in our regulations. And to change the constitution and regulations obviously requires the full involvement of all member clubs. So it's unlikely that member clubs are ever going to change those rules. And MSSA cannot just go and share in the profit of a club. It cannot do that because it is a distinct legal entity, as is the member club.
Mm.
So that is a totally fallacious remark. And it's something that we don't even want to do. And we would never want to do that because we're working on the philosophy that Mind Sports and all its members form a body. All the clubs are actually the cells that make up that body. So if you're going to attack the cells within your body, you're going to have a weak body.
Yeah.
So
like
that is the philosophy of Mind Sports South Africa.
Okay.
And
just another question for the people out there that didn't do the research as I went and I did on you guys. How does one get involved?
Well, it's very easy. You can either join an existing club or you can start your own private club. Now, if you start your own private club, we basically stick to the law, very closely to the law. We don't allow private entities to actually, private companies to actually affiliate because we're a non-profit organization. So if you've got a P2I limited, you can't join, but you can still start an NPC, a non-profit company, or an association with the same name, if of course the private company agrees. So if you've got, for example, a company called Sharkbot P2I Limited, and you wanted to have your own club affiliated, you would then start Sharkbot as a club. It would have to have at least 3 members for it to be a legal entity.
Okay.
Now, the way that we've set that up is that, and this is really up to the member club, it can have all sorts of requirements within the club as to who can vote and who can't. That's for the club to decide.
But
so
at least three people must have a vote before any decisions can be taken.
There must be 3 voting members.
All right.
To have multiplicity of membership. So if you have a look at other sporting codes, for example, like swimming, even though the law says that you have to have at least 3 people, there you'll find that Swimming South Africa says, well, for you to start a club, you have to have at least, I think at the moment it's 45 members. And the reason is because they're saying, well, you have to be a functioning club. We're saying you have to have at least 3 because that's what the law says. We don't actually. And quite frankly, you know, because esports, you can have individual events and you can have team events. You know, you could have 3 people, you know, who are all playing PES, or 3 people who are all playing Clash Royale, and that could be the club. So that doesn't bother us. Of course, it's great if you've got a clan, for example, playing Mobile Legends or playing Counter-Strike, because there you've got 5 members. You see, so it's easy to actually run a club. Now, there's huge advantages in doing this, in forming a club, in that it becomes a legal entity. So you're not looking at somebody who's a sole trader saying, well, I own this club. I own this clan. Because the effect of a person being a sole trader means that he is being taxed as an owner in his own right. And of course, nobody else has any rights. In an association, in a non-profit company, everybody has rights as laid out by law. So when you go the legal route, people actually, and this is the important part, it's not just people, it's the players, the gamers themselves have legal rights. They have legal recourse. And that's the important part. It's basically part of the greater education to help make esports grow up a little bit. You know, so you're not just stuck in a club where one person actually owns it all and actually gets all the profit. It's then the club members who decide where the profit goes. So it's very easy to join an existing club or to start your own club. Another benefit of starting your own club is that it can actually apply for national lottery funding. And a number of clubs affiliated to the MSSA have, over the years, received national lottery funding. Some, with fairly small amounts of 50,000, and some with larger amounts running into the hundreds of thousands. And this is something that we want to see, because the more money that's going into clubs from national lottery, it means the more equipment will be bought from the manufacturers and from the distributors, which will actually help boost the whole esports environment. It will also help the training of new players. It will also help the development of new players. So
it will help put South Africa on the map with esports, basically, in general.
That's right. And then you see what you're looking at is very real amounts. So if you look at national lottery funding, member clubs can actually apply for up to 800,000 Rand per application. Now, that money can only be spent in the acquiring of new equipment, of kit, entry fees into tournaments, and traveling. Now, the interesting thing about that is that the entry into tournaments and the traveling is not restricted to South Africa. So, for example, let's say there's a club called, Sharkbot, and it says, well, I want to send a team to play in the Swedish national championships to get extra experience. You would then put that into your national lottery funding tender. It has to be approved by MSSA for national lottery to even look at it. If you got that money, you would actually be able to send a club team to participate in another country's national federation, national championships, which would benefit the club in so many different ways. And this is what we're looking at. So when you look at, in the past number of years, you've had clubs that have tried to get people, well, I wouldn't say clubs, but private institutions, private companies that have tried to get teams overseas, and they've done it for a while and they failed. It's because they haven't had this extra income stream which they could utilize. Because they're a private company, government's not interested. National Lottery will not fund a private company, but it will fund an association of South Africans. That's the big difference. And this is what we need to have a look at. And quite frankly, gamers must take advantage of it.